Hi, I'm Abram. Welcome to the new Yankee Workshop. Today's project takes its cue from our wooden sign that's been hanging here for nearly 20 years. Over that period of time, we've built a lot of projects, but I always wanted to do a program about how these signs are carved. So we'll go to New Hampshire and see where our sign was made 20 years ago, and then we'll come back here and make a few carved wooden signs. That's next, right here in the new Yankee Workshop. Now, this should be interesting. This sign hasn't been up here for almost 20 years. We're in Lincoln, New Hampshire, and in the wintertime, this is serious ski country. But when they're not skiing, they're making signs like this one. There's a nice example.
Norm, I'd recognize you anywhere. Nice to meet you. I'm J.D. Isles, owner of Lincoln Sign Company.
Oh, good morning. Now, you made this sign for us quite a while ago.
Well, actually, I didn't make the sign, but the person that did make the sign, you'll meet in a couple minutes. Why don't you come inside and I'll give you a tour?
Great.
Norm, this is our paint shop, and you'll see a lot of the tools of the trade in here. Currently, Chris is working on a sign for a local bank.
Boy, that is one large sign. Now, what's it made up out of?
This is a glue-up made of Western red cedar.
About 1.5 inches thick, nice and rugged. Now, how are the letters carved out?
That's actually cut on a computerized cutter that we have over in the wood shop.
So it's done by machine?
Yes, absolutely.
And how about the paint? Anything special about that? This is going to be outdoors.
Yep. The background is a outdoor latex paint, and Chris is currently finishing up lettering with an oil-based paint.
Oh, so there's no messing up now. I mean, the lettering gets painted last.
Absolutely.
Anything special about that brush you're using, Chris?
Yeah, this is called a quill. It's what the sign painters used to use in the olden days when they hand-lettered signs. It comes separate from the handle.
Right.
Plastic ferrule,
Right.
as you can see, and wires that wrap the hairs into the ferrule.
What about the hairs? Where do they come from?
These are squirrel hair. They used to be camel hair, but it's hard to get camel hair now.
Okay.
Too expensive.
Well, it looks great.
Well, thank you.
Now, you mentioned that it was carved by a machine. Was ours carved with a machine?
No, actually, let's go in the next room and meet Rick.
Okay.
Norm, I'd like to introduce you to the person that actually made your sign. This is Rick Weisbrod.
Oh, Rick, very nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, sir, after 20 years.
Well, the sign has held up pretty well, don't you think?
Yeah, there it is.
A couple nicks here and there. Do you have any memories of the days that you spent building this sign or making it?
I do. It was 20 years ago, and I remember I had to get it out before I went on vacation.
Yeah, we were pushing you pretty hard. Well, I'm interested in knowing how you went about doing some of the work. For instance, carving these letters. Did you carve these by hand?
That was done with the router, Norm. We transferred the letters on to the background, and then I cut it with a router.
Did you use a jig with the router?
No, I'd be happy to show you over here what we did.
Wow,
This
that's an
is
old
my router.
Yeah, that's an old one. And I see you got a chamfering bit in there, high-speed steel. And what's the light bulb for?
Oh, the light bulb is quite important for visibility when you're doing hand carving with a router.
Okay. So I see you're going to carve these numbers here?
Yes, and I'll cut one right now for you.
That is neat. You know, I've done a little bit of freehand work with the router, and it's very difficult. You have a very steady hand. That takes a lot of practice. Well, do you ever do any carving by hand these days?
We have a project in the shop right now that is for a realtor. It's a mountain scene applied to a sandblasted background.
Okay,
that
so this is some kind of urethane, I guess. And you have very traditional carving tools. And how's this stuff to work with?
This is excellent to work with. It's a no grain and is quite stable.
Let's see, just carve a little bit of it.
We're doing some trees here.
Boy, that stuff carves like butter. You must like working with that.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot easier than fighting the grain.
Well, thanks for the work on our sign. It's held up really well.
Well, thank you, Norm.
Okay,
Pleasure.
thanks. JD, how would you make our sign today?
We would actually use a computer.
Really? I'd like to see that.
Absolutely. Norm, this is what passes for our world headquarters. This is where I put together a design for the router. We use a specially written piece of software that was made for the router that allows me to go in and work with a design. I can basically choose any type style I want. I can change the spacing. Once I have a type style that I like, I can size it up and get it to the proper size. And then I can tell the router what kind of V-bit I want to use, tell it basically how deep I want it to cut, and it will automatically generate a toolpath just like this.
Okay, so now when you're satisfied with the design and everything, how does all this information get to the machine?
I can actually just save the job. It'll send automatically over our wireless network, and it'll go out to the wood shop.
High tech. Let's see the machine.
All right, terrific. So this is the wood shop in the router room. This is Lee Lamontagne, our master woodworker.
Hi, Lee. So I see you have a computer monitor here as well. Is that receiving the information from your end of the office?
Correct. That's getting the information that we programmed over there, and it's feeding it to this machine. It's taking the spindle and it's moving it X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so you've got X, I guess, Y, and then the Z is up and down.
Correct.
Looks like there's a chamfering bit in there, just like the one we saw Rick use in his handheld router.
It's almost exactly the same.
Okay. Well, I'm always interested. What does it cost to buy a machine like this, and is it worth the investment?
Well, it definitely is. We couldn't live without this machine. It is a big investment, but we get a huge reward back from it.
So how much?
Roughly somewhere over $10,000.
That's not small change, but worth it, given what it does.
Absolutely. Well, that's not the only way we have of carving a sign. This sign is actually going to be sandblasted.
So what's the process?
Basically, what we do is we cut a pattern using a material called sandblast mask.
Feels like rubber.
That's exactly what it is. And when we fire coal slag at this blank, whatever's covered in rubber will be protected. Everything else will be eaten away.
So it'll pop right out. The letters will
Exactly.
pop out. So I see a bin here for sandblaster. I've seen these before, and this is the ground up coal slag.
Correct.
I'd like to see it done.
Absolutely. Let's get out of the way because it is messy. Well, here's what it looks like about a third of the way done.
Okay, he's in there an eighth to a quarter of an inch. I start to see the effect. Very rustic. It looks great.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I'm picking up a lot of tips here today, but there's one more thing.
Sure.
Our new Yankee sign had a bit of gold leaf on it. I'd like to learn how to do that.
We're set up for that in the other room.
All right.
Norm, I want to introduce my wife and sign maker, Vicky.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Norm. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So, what can you teach me about gold leaf?
Well, gold leafing is fairly simple. We start with a painted sign, and the next step in the prep work is we take a potato, slice it, and rub it over the surface of the sign. This provides a starch barrier that prevents the gold leaf from sticking where you don't want it to.
Oh, new use for a potato, I guess, huh? And what's next?
Then we apply some sizing for gold leafing, and that is some liquid here that is actually clear, and we add some paint to it so you can see where you've been. That is then painted on and allowed to dry until it is just slightly tacky. You want to just barely feel it pull up on your knuckle.
So it feels a little bit like when contact cement is ready, just tacky.
Just
Okay.
tacky. And then you're ready to apply the gold leaf.
And this is how you get the gold leaf in sheets like this?
It comes in sheets of 23 karat gold.
And what's that worth?
Sheet is about $1.25.
That's not bad.
Not too bad.
All right, and how do I put it on?
Very simply, you take the sheet of paper, can put it down. I usually press it with my finger first. Then I've got an old worn out paintbrush here to get down in the cracks. Lift it off, and there you go.
Wow, that's great.
Just move from section to section. And once you've finished a number like this 8 that I did a little bit earlier, you just take a paintbrush and brush off the loose leaf, and
And you can really see how that potato lets it just flow off the painted area.
Flies right off.
Ah, that's great. Well, JD, I've learned a lot of secrets about sign making today. I really appreciate the lessons. It's been a valuable visit.
Terrific. And don't let it be another 20 years before you pass another visit.
No, we won't. Can I give that a try? All right. Well, there's my first carved sign, following the tips that I learned while I was in New Hampshire. After laying it out, I carved the letters freehand using a router and then touched them up by hand, and then, of course, painted the whole sign. So if you'd like to try making your own hand-carved signs, a video will be available, and you'll hear more about that before the program ends. Now, while I was in New Hampshire and with my research, I learned that the preferred wood for sign makers is either clear western red cedar or redwood. Now, when I do a glue up like the one I needed for the sign I made, I joint the edges so there's a nice tight fit with no pressure. For glue, I'm using epoxy, the same material that boat builders use. There's a resin and a hardener. I mix it according to manufacturer's specifications. And what I want to do is spread a little bit on each edge. And then I'll clamp it up. After it dries overnight, I'll sand the surface so it's smooth and I have a nice signboard to start. Okay, that'll be ready in about 24 hours. The next sign I want to make is for a dock box. You know, one of those lockers that yachtsmen keep on the dock with extra parts like oil, lines, maybe even an extra anchor. Well, the name of the boat is Serenity, so the dock box needs a nameplate with Serenity on it. So I've set up my laptop computer with a word processing program, and I've opened the font window. I have dozens of fonts that I can pick from. I chose Times New Roman, regular style, and the size is 350. And I want an outline. So once the parameters are set, I type in the name of the boat. Now it's going to take 2 pages. I'll send it to my printer. Now if I don't have a computer or a printer, I can go down to my local office supply store or art store. You can buy pre-made fonts, or they might even let you have a computer to borrow and lay it out yourself. Either way, you'll get the letters that you need. The signboard will be made out of teak, the right choice for a marine application. I've cut it to length, now I want to rip it to width. But before we use any power tools, let's talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. Now the trick is to transfer these letters onto the wood. So this material right here is called transfer paper. I bought it at the local artist supply store. The face side goes down. I've centered the lettering on top exactly where I want it. And now I'm going to take a ballpoint pen, and wherever there are straight lines, I'm going to trace right on top of the printout, pressing down pretty hard. And wherever there are curved lines, I'll do those freehand. All right, that completes that. Let's see how we did. Perfect, I can see that. Now we'll route it out. The router I'm using has a clear base with a nice big hole in the middle, which is great for visibility. Now I like to use a router with 2 handles, one on each side, so I have good control. The bit that I'm using is a standard V-groove bit, and Ed used a clip light for lighting. I'm using a little flashlight. I actually hot glued this block of wood to the router motor and then taped the flashlight to the block. And the angle's just right, so it aims right at the tip of the bit. Now the depth is set to the widest part of the letter. So when I'm doing that, the router can be all the way down on the wood. But as I get to the ends where it's a very narrow cut, I'm going to have to tip it up and just try to keep that tip between the layout lines. Wish me luck. Well, I've gone as far as I can go with the router. Now I'm just using some hand tools to make it a little bit crisper. want to make a bit of a decorative cut around the edge, and for that I'm using my cove bit. Well, I thought I'd try my hand at making some house numbers, like the ones J.D. Isles was making up in New Hampshire. Here's the first one I made, number 259, an oval like the ones that you saw, made out of cedar. But instead of using a router to form the numbers, I'm using this mill knife. Now, it comes with different blades that are adjustable. And what I actually did is modify the blade that came with it. Here's a blade that would come with it. It's way too long. And what I did is I cut off a portion of it and set the bevel at 35 degrees, was what my research told me it should be. Sharpened it again, and now I'm doing the carving. And I start by roughing out the center of the piece. And I want to carve across the grain as much as possible. And what I'll do is continue to shave off a little bit more, moving closer and closer to the finish line with each pass. Now, carving these curved numbers is a little trickier because of the grain. If I go in the wrong way, it's going to catch the knife. Now, on the outside curve, here I'm going down and around, sort of away from the tips of that grain. If I were to try to come from this direction, it would catch the grain and the knife would want to run along the grain. So on the outside, I go this way, on this quarter of the number. On the inside, I want to go just the opposite. I want to start here and work my way up. Now, one thing about hand carving these signs, it's all about practice. And most importantly, a very sharp tool. A dull tool will make it very difficult. Another way to make signs is like our furniture sign up there. A signboard with cutout letters applied to it. Now, to do that, what I'm going to show you is to take a piece of cedar, and I've sprayed it with an artist adhesive. And that's going to temporarily hold this letter, which I've printed out on my printer. I'm going to use my scroll saw to cut the letter out. I'm using a skip-tooth blade with 11.5 teeth per inch, which will give me a nice smooth cut. Now I need to drill a hole so I can get the blade on the inside of the letter. All right, now just peel off my layouts part, and if there's any remaining material, just take a block of wood, sand it off, gets rid of the adhesive. I want to ease the corners slightly, so for that I'm going to use a very small radius roundover bit, only about 1/8 of an inch. And now, because the router doesn't get into the corners, I'm just going to take my mill knife, trim it up a little bit, and we'll touch it up with some sandpaper. Now I want to make a signboard for our raised letters. There are several ways to do that, but here's one suggestion. I start with a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and I've taken some cedar and rabbited it so that it covers the edge of the plywood, and put a little chamfer detail on the outer edge. Here are some pieces that I've already mitered the corners on, and the first thing I'm going to do is apply a little glue and brad those corners together. Bead of glue in the rabbet, and I'll just brad the plywood. All right, that takes care of our signboard for the raised letters. Now let's go into the finishing room and do some painting. Now, the first step in finishing or painting any of these signs is to prime them. And the recommendation is to use an alkyd oil-based exterior primer. And I want to prime all surfaces, front, back, and all edges, especially if it's an exterior sign. For the top coat or final color coat here on one of the number plaques, I'm using a acrylic latex enamel, exterior grade. And one coat should do it, but if I need another one, I'll apply that before I finish the numbers. Now for our teak sign board, we have to clean it first because teak has natural oils which will prevent the finish from sticking. So I'm using acetone just to wipe it down to clean the surfaces. Now I'm going to spray on some exterior varnish, give it a nice coating. I think it'll probably take a couple coats before we can finish the letters. I want to gold leaf the numbers on our house sign. So after the latex paint dried, I just scuffed up the area of the recess. And now I'm applying a gilding size. And what this does is it helps adhere the gold leaf to the sign. I want to only put it exactly where I'm going to apply the gold leaf. And I'll let it set until it's just tacky. Now take a look at the Serenity sign. I've decided to highlight the letters on this sign with some black enamel oil-based paint. And I'm just trying to keep it only in the groove. Bring the brush up just to get to the edge of it. And after I do all the letters, I think I'll seal the whole thing up with a few more coats of varnish. Now for our cutout letters, I'm going to apply them to the sign board using a hot melt glue. I'm afraid that nails might split these letters. This is a polyurethane glue. It'll work both indoors or out. Put a little bit on, press it into place, and in about 30 seconds it'll be cured. Okay, I think our gilding size is ready for some gold leaf. But before we start that, here's that tip we learned in New Hampshire, just to take a potato and rub it over the sign before we start the gold leaf. I was able to find the gold leaf at an artist supply store. And this is called patent gold leaf. It's like a transfer paper. It has a tissue paper on the back. And the idea is that I'll place it near the number and just take my finger and push it down. And hopefully it's going to transfer onto the groove. And I made this little burnisher just to get into the corners, just out of a dowel. It'll be a while before I'm ready for a church steeple. Well, we're gaining on it. It takes a while. Well, here it is, our collection of carved wooden signs. My hat's off to the folks up at the Lincoln Sign Company. After doing this, it definitely takes some experience, skill, and a lot of practice to do it well.